Hello, Dr. Rob.
Good evening, Tammy. Nice to see you.
Great to see you. We're waiting for questions. This never happens. We always end up with too many
Well,
questions at the end of the day and
I can tell
not,
you that today
please,
I've been recording. I've learned how to edit videos. So I've been going back and editing all my videos. I may have some for you. Um, I can actually take the part off that says, "Okay, now I'm going to start," and I'm going to press this
please. That would
button,
be good because yeah, that's always an issue. Oh, we have a question.
and I can do
Thank
without
you.
your help.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing.
Yes. Okay. Here's a question, Dr. Rob. Addict, in the event of strong emotions, I am, wait, I'll move it to answer so
It's
that
okay.
you
I see
get.
it.
Oh, well, I just moved it.
It's
Okay.
all right.
In the addict, in the event of strong emotions, I get overwhelmed all too quickly and begin to going numb. How do I make it stop? That's a great question. And thank you
Well,
for the awareness. Honestly, that's really like just having an awareness is the beginning. So
and I'm glad you're not necessarily asking questions, that you're asking more mental health questions, which I appreciate because, I have all that background and I love to use it. So I don't know you. And so I don't know the nature of what you mean by going numb. I don't know what you mean by overwhelmed. It's different for different people. I will say to you, though, that it's been my experience for many, many, many years that almost all of us who have the addiction we have, and I would say many addicts, have had really problematic childhoods. And by the way, I don't parent blame, I don't parent bash. All I say is, and I loved my parents, they did the best they could. I really mean that. It just wasn't everything I needed. And to me, that's the most loving way to say that some things happen, which I wish hadn't happened. And probably so do they. So, in any case, something happened to us in early life. And for some people, it was profound enough that they learned how to kind of push it away into a box somewhere. We call this dissociation. And so, one way to disappear out of your present life is to start thinking about alcohol. If you're an alcoholic, or start thinking about drugs, and you can carve space out into that. A lot of us addicts, sex addicts, find that we're numb and distracted and adrenaline fueled on the way to acting out. And I would say that's part of it, is to disappear into something. But numbness to me feels a lot more like shutting down, like protecting yourself. Like you said, I get overwhelmed and then I get a little bit numb. And I think that that is your own protection of yourself. It really is a part of you saying, I can't handle this. This is really difficult. It's over. And I'm just going to go over here where I don't have to feel it for a while. It's kind of like watching TV. I could distract myself for hours. I think you have a part of you that can distract yourself. But when you really start wanting to work on this stuff, it can get in the way because the goal is to learn to tolerate that overwhelm, because we all get overwhelmed and you need to be able to manage that rather than disappearing. Otherwise, the issue never really gets resolved. I think this is a therapy issue, because trauma is, and you can find really good people today who trauma work is a major part of what we deal with. So if you want resources for trauma, I don't know where you live, but I guarantee you, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. We make a lot of referrals. We love and appreciate the people we refer to, and that's why we refer to them, because they're good therapists. And we know a lot of trauma folks all over the country. So that's what I think. And even if you can't afford to go every week, by the way, you can go every other week, once a month. But just to get on that track of having someone to talk to about this and guide you. One more thing, one of the processes they often do with this kind of trauma is they use a process called EMDR. And EMDR, eye
I'm
movement,
movement.
reprocessing.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a procedure that we do with trauma, and it seems to reduce some of the sting of it, or for you, the numbness. So I would suggest seeing a trauma therapist, at least getting a good diagnosis and understanding, as you want to, what it is you're struggling with. Tammy?
Well, Dr. Rao, I'm going to ask you because we often talk about when for trauma. So if this is somebody that is
Mm.
very early in the process, can you talk about that versus, like if this has been going on, like you've been in recovery for a year and you're still struggling with feeling like you're overwhelmed, and
Right.
that's different to me than somebody who is like, okay, I've been not acting out for 2 weeks and I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Well,
So
you
can
could
you talk
say
about that?
this.
Oh,
You could say this. You don't need me. Go
well, I
ahead.
do need you. You're the mental health professional. So,
I
so
need to
to
get a
me,
clean
yeah.
so I'll be right back.
Okay. So to me, there's a difference, like, of course, very early in the process, and you didn't share that. And I'm just going to expand on this a couple different ways. So very early in the process, of course you're overwhelmed. Of course you've been using your maladaptive coping mechanism, otherwise known as your addictive behaviors, to numb out and escape all of these things that are uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden you're going, oh my goodness, I have to deal with life on life's terms and I don't have the tools. Of course you don't have the tools, but you can learn in recovery. So if it's very early in the process, really lean into your recovery work. Dr. Rob talked about a qualified mental health professional. Yes, we have online work groups that help get a foundation. You'll have your 3-circle plan, you'll have peer, support and accountability, and those type of things are drop-in groups, etc. So there's lots of resources on seeking integrity that can help you, and you can learn to slow it down and go, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. What do I need to do to ground myself? And I always say, have a plan, because you're going to get overwhelmed. So planning in advance is really helpful. Back in the olden days, before we had, smartphones,
olden days?
Yeah, well, and I still honestly have it. It's like I have I carried one of these. This has the 12 steps on it. This has the serenity prayer. This was the kind of stuff I had in my purse or pocket, like all the time. And even just touching that, I would go, it would help ground me. I'd have that connection. I had phone numbers. I had people I could call. I couldn't text them back in the olden days. So it's like, what can you find to have a couple of different options to help settle you in the moment and be present? That said, if you've been doing this for a while and you are really still struggling with, with the overwhelmed and, and feeling like it's too quick, and that's a subjective thing on some level, it is a process, it is a journey, but I think getting qualified professional help could really help. I will also say, the attachment wound work group that starts later this week, the inner child work group that starts, this week, both of those are really helpful for addressing those wounds that happened in early childhood through no fault of yours or any, it's just what it is, but you now as an adult have the ability to address those. So on Seeking Integrity, email me if you've got questions. So
Tammy, I want to read a little bit of this if you don't mind, because I think it addresses it so well. It says, yes, it is possible for sober addicts to feel numb when they get emotionally overwhelmed. Addiction recovery is a complex process that involves physical, mental, and emotional healing. When someone in recovery faces overwhelming emotions, it can trigger various responses, including feeling numb or disconnected from their emotions. This can help protect someone from the intensity that you may feel when sober. This can happen as a result of past trauma, which is common among individuals struggling with addiction. It can be a way to avoid relapse, but it's very important to notice that emotional numbness in recovery should not be ignored or dismissed. You must seek help from a qualified mental health professional. So I just thought that was so well, organized. I wanted to read it, and so many people struggle with this. Oh, I also wrote down, you were not alone, and
yes,
you were not crazy.
No. Yes, but if you think about, you have been tamping down for years or decades all of these emotions, and then all of a sudden, and I've shared this on other webinars too, but I remember very early in recovery, and I was feeling overwhelmed, and someone in program said, "What are you feeling?" And I was like, "I don't know.
Right.
I'm just feeling, and it's too much, and I can't even remember if it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. It was just too much. I didn't know how to handle it. So learn tools to do it. And so there's hope. You can learn. You're asking the right question and you're not ignoring it. So all good. Okay, next question. My wife has asked to leave our home, but it will not happen for 6 weeks while waiting for a rental to open up. What advice do you have for me? She says, I'm trying to win her back, but I'm trying to treat her better. Any help is appreciated.
Our wives will leave her home, will not happen for 6 weeks.
I think he's being asked to leave the home.
Yeah. I'm not sure how, in what way this person is trying to win her back. So, I see. You're trying to be kinder and warmer, and just because you feel that's the right thing to do right now, but she perceives it as trying to win her back. So, Tammy, why don't you, that's such an interesting question, actually. What thoughts do you have about it?
So I share with lots of addicts, you take care, you do what you need to do to take care of yourself. You show up for your recovery, you do the work. That's number one. And you're not doing it for her. Should, I think if you are actually doing the work on recovery, you should start showing up differently. And so you would be kinder, you would be more honest, you would be more respectful, you know, and her perception of why you're doing it is irrelevant. You're doing this because it's the right thing to do. You know, I love that our company is called Seeking Integrity. We strive for that personally, and we help others who want to be on this journey to find that as well. So if you focus on what do I need to do for my recovery and really lean in, it sounds like this is pretty recent. Again, we have a work group that starts, Sex Addiction 101. We have those every month. We have an Out of the Doghouse for men who've been caught cheating. That's to learn empathy. But if you haven't really gotten the foundation, like you don't have a 3-circle plan, you don't have a, you know, you don't understand what you're dealing with, then go to Sex Addiction 101 or Porn Addiction 101 if all of the acting out has been online. But I'm happy to help anybody walk through that, you know, email me. But to me, it's really do what you need to do, be respectful of her boundaries. If it's you're living within the same home and you're navigating and you've got the kitchen from, you know, 5:30 to 6 and she's got it at 6, make sure it's clean and you're like, do what you need to do to be a really good human being, not to impress her just because that's the right thing to do. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces here. I trust your wife's feelings, by the way. Something has shifted in the way you're treating her that she feels differently about. And, you know, so even if you're not trying to win her back, I hear things like from the people I work with, especially the men who are at Seeking Integrity, they have made the mistake of saying things like the following, which I recommend to no married person who's in a relationship in the first 6 months of recovery. Do not say these things to your spouse. One, could you please forgive me? Or do you think you'll
Oh,
ever forgive me? Or, you know, maybe someday, you know, and then here's another one. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't really what I, you know, I was just, um, here's another one. You know, I'm working really hard on this. I'm going to lots of groups and I'm leaving and I'm being kind about that. It's all, and there's nothing wrong with saying any of these things are all very nice. But the thing is, when you ask your wife, in this case, to focus on you in any way, she's going to get angry. For example, if you said, gee, I hope you forgive me in the future, she has to start thinking about forgiveness. She has to start thinking about you. You know, maybe she's not ready to even think about that. So I think what Tammy said, you know, clean the dishes, be polite. We have a saying in treatment, news, weather, and sports. And that means that this isn't the time to talk about deep and heavy things. By the way, the last thing I wrote down is ask her, what does she think leads her to feeling like you're acting in a certain way and what bothers her? So that, you know what, even if it, a lot of times in this stage of recovery, spouses are so overwhelmed and so angry that they don't believe anything we say. So, and nor should they. So you may be feeling really compassionate and warmly toward her because of what you've done. She doesn't believe you. She's kicking your butt out of the house. So be polite, do what you need to do there, ask her what's bothering her, and don't do it. And remember that there is absolutely nothing you can do right now to help her feel better, to apologize, to get her back. All you can do is be respectful. I did write a book out about empathy called Out of the Doghouse. Tammy, we have a course in it. Tammy it's
I just,
specifically
yeah, yeah, I mentioned that, but don't do that if you don't have a foundation of recovery. People come to that all the time. I want to learn how to have empathy, and they haven't done any of the work to get a
well, let me be
foundation.
more specific about, I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that. So we teach courses, right? And we have a lot of free stuff. And we teach about sex addiction. We teach about sex addiction and porn addiction. We teach about betrayal. We teach about couples, all kinds of stuff. But I wrote a particular book and a course about how a man who has been cheating and really hurting a spouse. By the way, there's a Christian version of that book as well. I just want to point that out.
I have that too.
Um, That was written with a colleague of mine who's a pastor. But in any case, the point of it was I have never met a man in my entire life, whether he's a cheater or a sex addict, who really understands the depth of betrayal that a woman goes through when you have violated her trust. And so I wrote a book about how to help a woman feel like you get it and what you have to do to show that you have empathy. However, as Tammy said, you look down our list of courses. This is such an addict thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the one about having empathy and restoring your relationship and being more kind to your partner. And you all take that course. But that's not the one you need to be taking. First, you have to take one to understand the addiction and understand the work that you have to do. And then you have to start doing it so your spouse can see you're committed. And then you look at empathy, because if you try to be too warm, too empathic, in the beginning, they're not going to believe you. So there is an order to this. And the first piece, just like we don't really look at trauma before you've stabilized your recovery. And we don't really look at coupleship and partner forgiveness until you're really, really solid in what you're doing. And your spouse can see, oh, they're going to meetings 3 days a week. Oh, they're going to therapy, and they're not nagging you and begging you and all that stuff. So that's a lot of answers to what sounds like a simple question. But ask any one of these spouses if they hear, I didn't mean to hurt you, and I hope you can forgive me, how well that's going to go. So anyway, thanks, Tammy.
Well, and you said, they don't trust you, nor should they, until
Nor
you
should
show
they.
that you can be trustworthy. And I often get, oh, I've done all this stuff, I want to help her. And I'm like, yeah, no, you need to focus on you, because you focusing on her is still a distraction and you're not working on you. So do the work. If you do the work, then you are seeking integrity and you then have something to offer someone else. But until you do that, you don't. Okay, ready for the next one?
Fawcett.
I am a partner of a sex addict. I have 2 grown sons, ages 31 and 32. They believe their dad is cured. He told them he is not acting out. Is he cured? He is not acting out, but refusing any recovery work. So I think
Okay,
of a
so
ham that gets
oh,
cured.
I just want to say,
Like,
Tammy, we have a book on managing children of sex addicts, and I think it would be great to type into their, sorry to
I
interrupt
will
you.
go pull that. No, but
There is
yeah,
a new
like,
book about someone we really
yes,
by someone we respect, and they talk to young people.
you did
They
a
talk to
podcast
older
with them
folks.
too.
I did a podcast. Yeah, by the way, some of the information you're looking for, a lot of it is in the podcast, and it is absolutely free. And usually a woman finds that she listens to it, or the betrayed partner, and then they say, you better listen to this. But we have over 1.2 million downloads or something. So it's been really helpful for people who
1.2
cheated
million,
on them.
over 1.2 million downloads. Yes.
But in any case, to your question, um, people who have chronic diseases or disorders, let's say mental health, like depression. I have depression. I'm bipolar. I will never be cured of being bipolar. It is an innate part of my DNA. My mother was bipolar, and it was triggered by certain stresses that I went through when I was younger. I don't expect to ever be cured of being bipolar. It is a lifelong biological struggle that my brain doesn't work right. I will never be cured of diabetes if I have diabetes. What you can do is put these things into remission. So if you are doing your diabetes meds and all that well, you are not suffering the negative effects of that. If I get depressed and I take care of myself, or I'm taking care of myself, then I get depression into a remission and I don't just have a bad day. It's the same with addiction. We are never, 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 never cured. It is an emotional and a brain disorder that started so early in our development in a whole bunch of ways that it's not going to be fixed. It is a chronic, recurrent mental health issue that under stress can reoccur. So your job, just to say it for everyone, is to not work 70 hours a week, to not, make sure you do this and that and this. And as I talk to the clients about spinning plates, number one, you have to slow your life down and realize your limitations. Addicts think we can handle anything. Of course, that's because we're not paying attention to how much we're really not handling. And what I like to say to the folks that I work with is, you're vulnerable. We're actually more vulnerable than a whole lot of other people. And we have to take really good care of ourselves. And that goes to the second part of your question, which is remission is a maintenance process. I have to take the medicine or else I go back into the problem. So no one is cured. And refusing recovery work is like saying, I don't want to take the medication, in this case, get the support, work with people. I don't want to take the medication that's going to keep me from going into relapse. So it is a logical conclusion. If you have a recurrent issue and the cure, which is recovery work on a whole bunch of levels, he's going to go back in remission. I'll also say this, that I got a lot of questions about this last week. When a man goes through seeking integrity and he finishes treatment and he's leaving after 4 weeks of being there and he's ready to go home and he says, I think I really got this. I think what you guys have to teach me, I brought it into myself. I'm going to go home. I can't imagine ever acting out again. I worry about that person. I think they haven't gotten it. The beginning of the whole process, at least in 12-step, is to admit that you can't control it, that you can't manage it, that you need to do recovery work in order to maintain sobriety. And so it worried. Now, what makes me feel good is if someone goes through 4 weeks of treatment and at seeking recovery, they've done really well, their spouse is involved, whatever it is, and they turn to me and say, I'm really scared. I don't know. I got a lot here, but the rubber meets the road when I get home. And what if I don't do it right? And what if I don't follow the plan right? Or what if my spouse doesn't forgive me? All that stuff. And I feel really good about those people because I realize that they understand that they are vulnerable and that they will never be invincible, no matter how hard they work. And therefore, they're concerned like you would be concerned if you had cancer and it was put into remission. They are concerned that it'll come back. When someone says, I got this, or I'm cured, I worry about them because they don't get the reality of the recurrence of the remission. I also feel like there's somebody in there wanting to say, I'm fine. Don't bug me about it. Especially the kids, everything's fine, which, by the way, they know it isn't, and it makes them crazy. When you lie to kids because you want to make them feel better, they already know. They wouldn't be asking the questions. So my biggest concern is he's being dishonest with his children. And Tammy and I know that a lot of the trauma that we experience clients having had is there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the family and no one talks about it. So this concerns me on a whole bunch of levels. What are you thinking about, Tammy?
Oh my gosh. So, my biggest concern is he's lying to himself, yeah. So that's where it starts, is he's lying to himself.
Right.
He may be abstinent in this area. I would be curious. I just talked to somebody this week, which is today, I guess, that
this
was
week
talking
is today.
about. I know, but I've talked to so many people even over the weekend. So, but it doesn't. That's irrelevant. But this behavior has stopped, but now he's drinking more, or now he's doing that. So all of these things. So this, if acting out is a maladaptive coping mechanism, the underlying issues have not been addressed. So just stopping that behavior is either, the pressure cooker and then something's going to blow, or he's using something else. He may have stopped acting out, with sex workers, but he's using porn. He may be eating more, or drinking, or yes, gaming. Gaming is huge. I mean, there's so many different things that are problematic. And it also is pushing, it's like Dr. Rob said, it's like, I got this. It's pushing everyone away. Leave me alone. And if the opposite of addiction, Dr. Rob says this all the time, I'm just requoting him. If the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment, how can you be healthily attached if you're getting pushed away? So like Dr. Rob said, addiction, the acting out is a symptom. I say this all the time. So stopping that's the very beginning of the iceberg. And then it's dealing with the underlying issue. So I'm going to flip this now and go, regardless of what he says, and the book is called A Light in the Dark, The Hidden Legacy of Adult Children of Sex Addicts. So that's the book. Dr. Ken Adams did a podcast with Dr. Rob on Sex, Love, and Addiction podcast. And you can find that on our website. But I'm gonna flip this to you. What healthy boundaries do you have for you? Because he isn't doing any recovery work. So what do you need to do to take care of yourself? Your children are adults. They're gonna have to find their own way. But really, key for me in this is, what healthy boundaries do you have? We have a betrayed partner work group starting this week. It's healthy boundaries, it's communication, it's what is sex addiction, all of those things. I think you'd find it really helpful. Those are low cost. A work group, let me back up one more thing. A work group is a low cost online, 90 minutes per week, live facilitated group. So it's psychoeducation and it's not therapy or treatment, but man, the people that participate in those find them really helpful. So anything else on that, Dr. Rob?
Well, I just wanted to say really quickly that, I was thinking, oh, this partner should read the book on children and how they're affected. And I thought, no, no, no. The person with the problem really needs to see how his or her kids are affected, because he's like, kids, don't worry about it. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't realize how they've already been affected. And there's a whole chapter in there about children who don't know, but they nonetheless feel it, or they hear about it. Or so, yeah, I think you need to, if nothing else, you can't get through to him for him. Ask him to take a look at how it affects his children.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. How does betrayal trauma affect people with bipolar, BPD
Borderline,
is bipolar,
borderline.
personality? Oh, I
Mhm.
never keep those. There are too many alphabets. And what can I do as the addict to support them? That's a mental health question. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I think that you have some work to do on really understanding. And by the way, I don't like to throw those words around. I think that those alphabet soup, as Tammy said, is very overused. And let me give you an example. Addicts are very narcissistic. I've worked kind of all kinds of narcissistic, and I'm very narcissistic. But NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, in 28 years or 30 years of doing this, I've probably met, quite honestly, maybe 6 or 8, because it's to be that far along is completely disabling. And borderline personality, there are people who have traits, God love them, they've had trauma, they also have genetic issues, whatever, but they can be incredibly functional. And then there are folks who get this label because they have some of the traits. So just to say it, before I say that she has this or she has that, or they have this or they have that, I would want a qualified professional, because some people read books and they're like, oh, I'm this. Tell me what graduate school disease is. We put up
Yes.
a slide that says this problem, and then everyone says, oh, I have that. And then the
Yes.
next slide comes up and oh, I have that. And so, I just want to be very careful. You might be saying traits of DPD. So number one is if someone is borderline or has those issues, the number one trigger for them, bar none, absolutely, all the time, forever, is abandonment. That is their greatest fear, that they're going to be abandoned, and they will be more likely to act out when they're having that feeling. Emotional security and safety and meaningful stability is what people with this particular issue need. And so I can't imagine a worse thing that someone who has these issues, and really they just have issues holding on to people, not for the same reason addicts do, we're numb to them, but they're terrified. And they're terrified because they're afraid of being abandoned. So I don't know how much that you can do to really make this better. Tammy, I don't even know. I'm going to look at some things to see, but as an addict, so, I mean, because of what we said, I was thinking all kinds of things you could do to make this person feel better, but they're not going to believe any of it. One of the things a spouse, someone has BPD really needs to hear is, I'm never going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you. No matter whatever happens, I'm right by your side. You'll always have me here, because they really need that. But you've already left this person. And so just like all the other spouses, they don't believe a thing you say. So what would comfort this person, they certainly can't hear from you. So in answer to the question, I don't know. I'll do a little looking, but Tammy, do you have thoughts?
I mean, to me, it's show up. It's the same recovery work. It's like, if you be as trustworthy as you can. You used one of the examples in Out of the Doghouse is, if you say you're going to take out the trash, you take out the trash. It's like, whatever you say you're going to do it.
Right.
If you say if you're going to be home at 5 o'clock, if traffic is running, you're calling and saying traffic is running late. Here's where I'm at. Use Weiss with an ETA, whatever, so that you know where you are. But it's showing up, and I think that's what addicts struggle with, is in lots of ways, is showing up for real. So I don't know enough about the mental health, but to me it'd be like, if you don't want to project abandonment, then you do what you say you're going to do, and maybe over time that helps settle things.
I also want to add, Tammy, I've really taken I've taken to some new technologies, and while we're on the screen, I'm always looking to see if I missed something. So one of the things that it talked about, what I think is really important, is that people who have this issue need really good boundaries. They need to protect, they need to understand what is the most hurtful, scary stuff to them, and they need to write it down, and they need to say, don't do this, and don't do this, and don't do this. And it'll be different for every person. The boundaries are for them so that they don't get emotionally overwhelmed. But I think teaching people with this issue how they can keep themselves safe is a whole big part of it. And again, I'm not sure, it's about being compassionate, non-judgmental, providing empathy. I'm not sure that you provide reassurance. I don't think you're the person who can do that for her. But Tammy said so well, if I don't do the laundry and I said I would, it's an abandonment. If I said I was going to pick someone up and I didn't pick them up, every disappointment to this person feels like you've walked a step further away. So yeah, if nothing else, show up for your commitments, get those groceries and put them away, because you want to calm this person down. That's all I can say.
Next question. My husband frames almost every situation, so he's the victim, which I think has enabled him to justify his SA behavior. He is nearly 60 years old and has been in recovery for about 8 months now. If I bring it to his attention, he can accept that he isn't the victim and that he needs to own his choices. Is this something that will eventually overcome? It seems to be my biggest trigger at this point.
Well, Tammy, making help. What I don't understand is this person saying, if I got it right, that this person is constantly framing themselves as the victim, which I can say something about. But it also says if they bring it to his attention, he can accept it and he will put it down, making himself responsible. So how do these things fit together? Can you help me?
Well, yeah, to me, it's like if I'm always the victim, but if you say to me, you're portraying yourself as the victim in the situation and you really aren't, then I could go, okay, I'm not. But I don't have the insight to be able to identify that. I start with I'm the victim. Does that make sense? Like if I'm always leading with I'm the victim and I have to wait for somebody to
Well,
point it out to me.
It's one of those things. It would infuriate me because it did go on the list actually of how to make someone of never say this to your spouse. Because what you're saying is,
Mhm,
I didn't mean it. I'm just, I'm so
mhm.
troubled and so many things happen to me. And, basically they're saying, I was so harmed, you got to forgive me.
Yeah.
And I just said to the guys today, I was talking to the Seeking Integrity guys, I was doing a lecture, and I said, you are responsible for your adult behavior. It's very sad the things that happen to us, and it's tragic. And that is a way for us to come to terms with, I'm not a bad person, but I'm really, really broken and I hurt people because bad things happen to me. But to say now, so I'm not responsible for them, so I could just do whatever I want because he's horrible. I mean, that's what people think addiction is. It's an excuse to do whatever you want. And it couldn't be more the opposite. It's an acknowledgement of your vulnerability and how easy it is for you to go back where you were. So, one of the things that I would suggest, and Tammy can talk more about this in particular, I think, is boundaries. You get to have boundaries. I'll say one more thing. I work with guys and I often talk to them about having a really big V on their chest and that they are not the ones who have been victimized in the situation. They are the ones who caused it. So tell him to take that V off his chest, because if there's any V, you get to put it on. No one wants to be a victim, but you have been victimized. By the way, I wrote a book about this called Prodependence, which is in support of partners and helping you understand that there is never anything you could have ever done to make this happen, and there's nothing you can ever do to make it continue. Codependency really puts that pressure on spouses, and prodependence says, you stayed because you love them, and who wouldn't? But in any case, I would feel furious. This would be a huge trigger for me because it falls into the category of him saying, well, please understand me. And you know what? Why would you want to understand him? All you need to understand is that he ruined your life. And you know what? He can take his victimhood to therapy. He can take his victimhood to 12-step meetings, and he'll get whatever he needs from that. But it is not your job to listen to this. And that's where the boundary comes in. I am going to walk away if I hear you saying this. Now, I have a friend who drinks too much. And when she drinks a lot, I'm not mean. I don't say don't drink. I just say, I'm going to go home. And so when you start hearing this, you can let him know, when I start hearing this, don't argue, don't ask him to say, I'm sorry. Just say, you know what? You know to yourself, it's a boundary for me. So you know what? I'm just going to go for a walk, or I'm going to watch TV. You don't even have to say why. But you have to take care of yourself. Look, if something makes you furious, stay away from it, And if he goes to this place, you can just politely and nicely go away. Any thoughts, Tammy?
Yeah, I do. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like, because I was thinking when I bring this to his attention, and I'm like, oh, there's so many different ways to bring something to someone's attention. So I really agree with Dr. Rob. It's like, what boundary, and have the conversation, not when it's happening, just for my safety and for my emotional safety. When I perceive that you are acting as the victim, I'm going to step away, and I'm just going to leave, or whatever works for you. I'm just making this up, but let him know in advance, and I will check in, and that would give him hopefully the pause to go, oh. Now, two more things. 8 months is good, but like you said, he's 60. He's been doing this for 50 years. So 8 months compared to 50 years, is probably, unrealistic to expect heroic, changes. If he's working his steps, 10th step is, I take a personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, promptly admit it. That should be something that I hope he's starting to really embrace. Hopefully he's been working steps 4 through 9. So I go back to steps. If you're doing the work, then you get the dividends of that. So do I think that there's hope? Yes. Do I hope that he's doing the work, that you'll start feeling a shift? Yes. But at the end of the day, like Dr. Rob said, it's about boundaries for you. What do you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can, ground yourself and go, yep, he's still in that mode, but his behavior does not have to negatively impact you. Triggering is difficult. You're always going to be triggered on some level, but how that plays out for you, how riled up you get, that you can help navigate.
Yeah, and I was just going to say something about that. I mean, we have support groups that we don't charge anything for betrayed spouses. You're not alone in getting triggered. What I would love to see is that you get enough support so when you get triggered, you're not sitting there steaming, but you have someone to call who's in the spouses group and say, you know what, I just got triggered by this. And they can say, I completely know what you mean. And then you're not alone with it. I think, what is funny, Tammy, when I was an active sex addict, I used to think, oh my God, I'm the only person. Of course, I was in sex with all these other people. Like, what was up with them? And I think as spouses, it's so shameful. It's so humiliating. It's so easy to isolate with this. And even people who go to the support groups, I hear them say, well, I'm not like that person. I'm not like that person, because they're scared. We'll help you with boundaries. You'll get some phone numbers to call. You need support, and he can't give it, even if he wants to. So
Yes.
what else we got?
So, well, and the drop-in groups, the old lady posse, they named it as tomorrow. That would be a great place for a betrayed partner. There's another one on Wednesday. There's another one on Thursday. So you leaning into support for you, and truly that betrayed partner work group, like that's, like they talk about what is a healthy boundary, how do I address my triggers, all of those things, and you can get a plan, and you can get other ideas from other partners and the facilitator, Angela Spearman, who's great. So, okay. Next question. It has been 2 weeks since my husband left SI. He is not living at home. I gave myself a 6-month safety harbor. When we have check-ins, he says he feels rejected and discouraged because I seem indifferent. He feels like I'm not giving him any type of credit for his recovery efforts. I let him know that I'm happy he chose recovery and he's attending regular meetings, but I would not be his cheerleader. Maybe he thought I would just bounce right back because he went to SI like I requested. Maybe he's trying to manipulate me again. Question, should I try to be more positive in my communication with him, even though I'm finding it hard to be warm and loving right now? Am I being unfair to him or unfair to myself? Thank you. This is a great question.
Well, there's a lot of things that, I mean, again, the word boundaries comes up for me here. When someone goes to treatment, first of all, when people go to treatment, we have a 4-week treatment program. It is a 4-week treatment program. Sometimes, under certain circumstances, people might come for 3. If they choose to come for 2, that means and we don't recommend it. And we were probably told this person that when we started.
Wait. It says it has been 2 weeks
Oh,
since
2
my
weeks since
husband
he
was
got home.
discharged.
I'm sorry.
We
I saw
don't,
2 weeks.
so we have a 14, 21, or 28-day length of stay.
Got it.
So we don't
Okay.
know how long this person was there. That's irrelevant. It's
Okay,
2 weeks since they got, yeah, thank you.
So it's sad to me that this person didn't learn that you are responsible to make him feel better. And this is someone who might want to take the Out of the Doghouse course or read the book. But you are absolutely right. It is not your job to be a cheerleader. It is not your job to make him feel better. And as much as the addicts come into treatment and they say in the beginning, I want to save my marriage, and later on they say, oh no, I'm really doing this for me. They would have come there years ago if they were doing it for themselves. So I have rooms full of men who either are unable to build a relationship with anybody, or the relationships they've built, they have destroyed. They are there to fix their relationships. And so I can imagine, unless they've really moved on to the place of, wow, so what I think is that he missed some of the part in treatment that has to do with the focus being on him for himself, regardless of what you do. And this is not the gospel that we preach. We tell them to leave you alone, to not try to impress. I have a whole lecture on this. Don't try to impress them. Don't try to apologize. It's really the same issue that we talked about earlier. It is not your job to be a cheerleader. And it is not even your job to be nice or warm or positive. None of it. You are hurting. You are angry. So to me, this would be a very clear boundary, which is maybe you need to check in less. Maybe you can say to him, you know what, I don't feel cheerful and I don't feel like being a cheerleader again. So if you go down that road, I'm going to respectfully say, why don't we talk another time? I think, you know what, he needs to feel terrible about this. Why don't you let him feel? Don't be more positive. Don't trust your gut. It's not time to be warm and loving, because that would be a lie to yourself and to him. You cannot be unfair to him by trusting yourself. So to me, I would help him understand reasonable boundaries, where he understands that that is not your role and you are not going to do it. It's not being mean, it's taking care of yourself. Boundaries are never mean or hurtful when it's for you. When you're saying, well, I'm not going to talk to you because I'm furious at you, and punish someone, that's not the kind of boundary we want. Or I'm going to do this to you and then you're going to change your behavior because I got so angry at you, or I set a boundary, you can't stay in the house. And so I know that's going to help you change. We don't set boundaries to help somebody else or make them do anything. We set them for ourselves. And this feels unsafe. And really, like, he's got some more lessons to learn, and he's still in it for the hope that you are going to XYZ. And I think we all realize, who've been working on this, that we may get the joys in life, but they don't come if we're doing them for something else. So maybe it's best that you do let him down a little bit, and let him struggle and let him be unhappy. And who gives a, excuse me, I don't want to get into that language. Who cares if he feels rejected and discouraged? Let him feel what he feels. And that is what we are for. I just want to get that across to all of you spouses. We, us therapists, us recovering people, us people at meetings, that we are for hearing those complaints, hearing I feel like a victim, hearing I can hear somebody say that and I'm dispassionate. They didn't do it to me, but it's very, very, it's not fair for an addict to use their dependency on a spouse to get their needs met right now. And I've also seen, I want to say, sorry, Tammy, we after a few days, we let the men in treatment really begin to talk to their wives or spouses or whatever it is. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, Tammy, but honest to God, I have a guy who comes into therapy and he's just all perky because he got a good email this morning or a nice text. And then the next day, because your spouses are all over the place, as you should be, he gets the, I'm not sure and I don't know and I'm really angry at you text. And he comes in, like this into group, because somehow they rise and fall on you. And that can't happen. If they get disappointed in you and you are their sole support, they're going to go act out. So please do not take responsibility for his recovery, which includes how he feels. Take care of yourself. I loved what you said this, by the way. I love this, which is, I let him know that I'm happy because he chose recovery and he's going to meetings, but I would not be his cheerleader. Now define what that is. I will not do this. I will not do that. I will not do, and hold that boundary. So there's nothing wrong with our spouses feeling awful about having done awful things. Yeah, so I could go on forever about that one,
I
Tammy.
know. Well, like I said, it's a great question. So yeah, do I feel like he's trying to manipulate you? Yeah, he wants you back, and he wants you to be going, oh, cheery, cheery, cheery. That you are indifferent is, I think, kind, because you could be angry. Like, it's, Dr. Rob just talked about, so that you are not going, I'm gonna, we're still dealing with it, whatever. I mean, I'm hoping, because you have a safe harbor, a 6-month safe harbor, you know, hopefully you have a list of what you are looking for his actions. And part of it would be that he's not, I mean, this is blaming to me. It's like, I'm blaming you because you're not being, happy enough for me. And so then I feel bad. I am responsible for my emotions. I'm responsible for my actions and my reactions. I don't hear him running off to his recovery peers and going, I'm
Right,
feeling discouraged, and like,
right,
what do I
right.
need to do? Because that would be like, you need to work the program, you need to work on your recovery. If he's just, sitting around feeling sorry for himself, I mean, like, that does not bode well for him. So, but again, what Dr. Rob said, what your healthy boundaries for you, absolutely. And then again, having a specific list. So if he, both of you are clear of what are you looking for, for improvement over that 6-month period of time. Because if in 6 months he's still, I'm going to use the word whining about, oh, I feel rejected, and discouraged. That's up to him. Like, you know what? I can go to a meeting and feel really crummy walking in the door, and I listen and go, wow, I have so much gratitude. Changes my perspective, in a hot second. So he's got options, but you are not his. You're not there to save him.
I wanted to just add a couple of things, which is I want to go back to why I got upset at the beginning.
Okay.
So I did think that, so we have a 4-week program, and sometimes people come in for shorter periods of time. It's not unusual for someone to say, can I do the minimum that I can do? Because really what they're doing is they're checking a box to make sure their spouse knows that they went to treatment. So that's why the 2 weeks triggered me, because that's kind of the minimum. Most of the people do not. It's more like a workshop for them, and they really need more time. It's helpful, but it's not necessarily. The other thing is, I wanted to say to you folks what a 6-month safety harbor is. So we tell people who are really thinking about divorce or ending their relationship or doing something major to say, look, if you want to see how this plays out, and some of you don't, put your relationship in what we call a safe harbor. Say, I'm going to put it here, and I'm not going to make any decisions about what we're going to do for this period of time. Now, understand me, you can be in a safe harbor and get a divorce lawyer. You can be in a safe harbor and get divorced if that's what you want. But the point is, you're still going to be open to thinking about how we go forward and not saying I'm done forever. So that's what a safe harbor is. And I think I tell couples this, if they're still very much in love and really, don't make any decisions about your relationship for 6 months or 4 months, and see how the therapy goes, see how the groups go, see how you're feeling at that point. Um, so I appreciate that you took some time and said, I don't want to make any decisions for this at this point, but you did say, I don't want you here living with me. And I thought that was a great boundary, by the way. Um, what else we got, Tammy? Let's keep going.
So I am the wife of a sex addict. He is in therapy for military traumas from deployments. He has not acted out at all since D-Day of July of 2022. Should I be concerned that he is not in sex addiction therapy specifically? I'm on my own therapy and trying to focus on myself and strengthening me, but it makes me nervous that maybe he's not getting all the therapy he needs.
Um, well, one thing is that I know that there are people who work with the military who also do this work. I can tell you there are treatment programs that will, in part, pay for him to get help with sex addiction if he's on the military insurance. So there is support. I just want to say that. I don't know if he's been acting out or not, but yeah, I don't know whether he should be in sex addiction therapy or not, because the first thing I see is he's in therapy for military trauma. And I just think the person who's working with him, they need to really decide how stable this person is, what they need, how much they need, and with you involved. But I would be nervous too, but I don't know the degree of what your spouse has been through or what he can or she can or can't tolerate. So I don't think that I'm the right person to ask that question. And the reason I say that is, if let's say you're looking at porn to stabilize yourself emotionally, because that's the best you can do. Well, maybe what needs to be addressed first is the amount of pain and hurt and triggers before you can stop doing that. Now, if someone's going out and having sex with other people, I think they could probably manage to not do that. So a bunch of things, what is he actually out there doing? How is the therapy trauma going for the military issues? And do you think that he is getting the kind of support to at least look on it and focus on that? And it would make me nervous too. Tammy, I feel like there's more to say, but I'm not exactly sure what.
Well, so one of the things I was thinking of, and again, like you said, I don't know what the right order is, but so we've had clients that have reached out and they really have a higher level of mental health issues. And so they need to address that first
Right.
and then address the sex addiction. So it feels like, like we don't have enough information getting the right help. Having someone who is qualified to assess this would be really helpful. But I don't know. It's interesting that he hasn't acted out since July of 2022. We hope, but if he's not doing any recovery work, like we just talked about, how 12-step
Right.
and our work groups and things like that, then it feels like he's just working on this, but the addiction has not been attended to. So, and if he's been working on that for 9 months or whatever it is, it seems like incorporating some recovery work to have a foundation to address, I say it all the time. I said it earlier. The addiction, the acting out is a symptom, so it's shadowing the underlying issues. So if he's working on some of these things, you still need to address, this is my maladaptive coping mechanism. I'm going to do this the next time, or some other form of compulsive behavior when I get triggered. So
I put a description and a little bit of an understanding of what boundaries are in the chat, because I think we're talking about it so much. So I just put a short little explanation of what a boundary is and who it's for. Tammy, there was something else you said about that, or a question just now that I really wanted to say something about. Oh, I know.
mental health, the mental health.
Yeah, which is,
okay.
This is a tough one because you can well, let me just say actually this. Even if he isn't in a place to be in sex addiction treatment or therapy or whatever that is, going to support groups is a wonderful experience, where you get a lot of people who are on your side and want to listen to you and want to support you. So I really, really think that if you can encourage him to go, and we have support groups, right, Tammy, for all kinds of men who just want to come in. I tell guys, come in like this, don't show your face, be completely anonymous, but just listen to what those men have to say. And you may actually want to ask a question. 12-step is not do this and do that and do this. It is if you want to jump in and do that. And people do a little bit and they jump back out. And I don't mean that they stop or disappear. I mean, they might write for a while and then they go listen, and they might support someone else for a while. But the point is that he could just go and get support, and that might make you feel better. You said he is a sex addict. So sex addiction therapy, I don't know, but going to support groups, there really couldn't be any harm in that. It can only help him build community. And there are, by the way, recovery groups for military people. And that's not hard to find. You can go online and Google for that.
Okay, so the next question. I'm the wife of an addict. My husband says he's at a crossroad because he feels trapped because I am hurt and do the accountability part as a wife. I feel insecure as it's been a tough road, so I asked for safety. That makes him feel trapped. He started groups last year and didn't do any steps and then stopped. He's restarting now and is starting recovery. We've had couples therapists all this time. He brings up feeling trapped when I bring up an issue related to the addiction that hurts me. We've been married almost 19 years. Our only son goes to college this summer. Does this sound hopeless?
Well, I just want to say something for Tammy, and I'm going to set this up for Tammy, is I don't see that you're seeing, and either of you are seeing a qualified professional understands this work. And, this really is a specialty. I mean, those of us who train, we train for, oh my God, we trained for a year and a half or something with supervision and all of that, maybe more, to get expert in working with this work, spouses, couples, addicts. And so, when you say you're going to couples, what kind of couples, who is seeing you? Does he have support? Do you have support? Because sometimes couples work is premature. When he needs to really get a better sense of his own recovery. I've said this a lot, but couples therapy in the early stages is not that helpful, because basically it's the same thing over and over again, which is the spouse saying, "You ruined my life and I can't believe it." And the addict saying, "I'm so, so sorry. I didn't mean to. Please forgive me." And that's all they have to say at the beginning. So as we said before, I think both need to lean out to other supports, sometimes separate therapists instead of a couples therapist at the beginning. Sorry, they're working on a garage. But in any case, oh, the trap part. Tell me, so what I want to do is tell him to shut the F up and leave you alone. If he feels trapped, that's his problem. You get to say what you need to say, and you get to ask what you need to ask. He's in the doghouse, which means you are not equal in this relationship. He is one down. He has lied. He has lost your trust. He has to restore your trust. And saying to you, "Well, you ask me questions, I feel trapped," is not the way to restore trust. Basically, he's putting the problem back on you, and you feel so responsible that you're even asking about this. I don't care if he feels trapped. Go see his own therapist if he feels trapped. Sorry, you can tell I have a little.
I'm 100% with you. I was like, he's trapped by his inaction. He is not doing anything for any kind of recovery. I agree. I was like marriage counselor early on. He's not doing anything. He's got no accountability. He's at best, he's maybe not acting out, but he is, I use this analogy often, when someone is an alcoholic and they stop drinking, but they don't do any recovery work, that's called a dry drunk. This is what I hear with him. And the victim, that person that said earlier, "Oh, he acts like a victim," he's feeling trapped, and he's the one that has acted out and caused you hurt. His actions, his behaviors have caused you hurt, and he feels trapped that you are having a feeling about, the hurt. That's, blame shifting. Is this hopeless? If so, a couple things. If you guys keep doing this pattern, you partner are trapped, because he'll keep doing this pattern.
Right, you're right.
So then it's not hopeless, but you're in this, I call it the negative two-step. It's a dance you don't want to do. Like you keep doing the same thing and nothing's going to change. So him getting qualified help and accountability and doing the work, life-changing for him, and can be, I hear all the time from the partners of the people that come to our program, that it was life-changing for them too, because they see he's changing. Now, we got a problem with the person earlier where he's going, "Oh, I feel so disappointed and hurt," whining. But I'm sorry, but like that drives me nuts. It's like, oh my God, you're the addict. It's your responsibility to do the work, and your partner has stuck with you. I mean, you've been there for 19 years. You have a kid. I get it. But you know what? Like, he could lose you if he doesn't want to change. Then he'll be trapped, because he will be alone without you. So it's entirely his choice. Healthy boundaries for you. If you haven't joined the Betrayed Partner work group that starts on, I think, Wednesday, join it, because you will get tools for how to create healthy boundaries for you. You had no control over him. But yeah, this marriage counseling stuff, to me, like support from a codependent aligned betrayed partner person for you, and set a healthy boundary that I'm done doing couples work. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to fall for your BS about being trapped, and I'm not going to be trapped either. So I'm taking action, because I value me, because you aren't in a place where you can yet. So we both have some energy for you. I'm sorry.
But
I'm not sorry.
You said something I thought was so amazing, which is you're going to end up the one that's trapped. You're going to be trapped by his emotional web that he's, and I did want to say one thing to all of you spouses, and I really want you to think about this. Some of you, the questions we come up for us are very often, in my mind, I'm not doing enough. I'm too focused on fixing it. I feel like I'm the bad person. Maybe I shouldn't be so angry. So some of the spouses I think are a little too far in this end, which is I don't want to get too mad. I don't want to upset. I don't want to, and then there's spouses on the other end, which are just so filled with fury that has taken over their own health. And really, the rage, the disappointment, it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. But when it gets to extremes, which is you're doubting your right to hate and be angry and afraid, and when you feel like you can never be in a place of peace with this at all, the extremes can be a problem. And that's when we hear from you guys. I'm so angry, I can't stop this, or I'm so worried about him or her getting upset when I say this. And all that, by the way, is boundaries. I draw a boundary about how angry I get. If I find myself wanting to hit the wall, I walk out of the room. There's a lot of ways, take time outs. There are a lot of ways to protect yourself without getting enraged all the time. And
Yeah.
spouses, listen to yourselves. If you're feeling angry, take care of yourself. The anger is a defense. In psychotherapy, we say it is a way of covering up or masking other feelings. Humor can be a defense. What anger covers up is fear and loss, fear and sadness. It's easier for me to be like this, which is important for a
Mm-hmm.
while, because what's underneath that is I'm so deeply hurt and I'm so afraid. But you're not ready. It's not safe to feel those feelings in the beginning, because you're not with someone who's safe, and you're not in a safe situation. So try to stay out of the extremes. You will find yourself with a little more peace, and not worrying so much about them. Yeah, take your focus off of them. We're a mess. Why watch us? Why look at us? Tammy, do we have time? We should take one more question, don't you think?
Okay, I'm just so Debbie McCrae did a really good Healthy Boundaries and Fear webinar. I just posted the previously recorded webinar in the chat. So the next one, hang on. Okay, the next one is, been 13 months in therapy, group work, etc. Not perfect, but am progressing. I'm a part-time musician and haven't played for 3 years due to COVID. Have canceled last 3 opportunities to play due to our situation and wanting her to feel safe. Part of my acting out was flirting, even when I wasn't aware I was flirting. And there were times when I was playing and I would flirt. My playing partner's wife is retiring in June and has asked us to play 5 songs at the gathering. My wife says that me wanting to do that shows I don't care about her being safe. The book, The Betrayal Bond, talks about diminishing the partner that has done the betrayal by taking away things that make them who they are, thus making them less. What are your thoughts? That's a complicated one. So, yeah.
Well, the simple answer is, can't she go with you? I mean, if she's sitting here in the audience, why would that, and not to stop you from doing anything, but what you said is she doesn't feel safe. Maybe she'd feel safer. I mean, I know that she probably doesn't want to see you play another 5 times, but if it's possible for her to be there, I think she will actually gain some respect, or she can begin to look at what bothers her. Now she may be so triggered by your doing this that she can't be present. 13 months. So I do want to say, well, you said I've been around 13 months, not perfect, but progressing. So you may have acted out in the last 6 weeks or 6 months, or so you may be 13 months of working on it, but your spouse may see it as you've really only been in a good place for 6 weeks or 6 months. So it may seem longer to you than it seems to your spouse. The other thing is, I do agree with you, and it is really individual to your circumstances. Sometimes we'll send a man home from seeking integrity, and we ask him, twice a month to go play golf, or to go play on a baseball team, or to go work on, on some project that he volunteers for. It's not unusual at all for a spouse to say, and I understand this, you don't get to go do that after what you did to me. And I understand your resentment, your anger, but recovery is not simply about paying penance. Recovery has to also be about, how am I finding a new way to enjoy my life that isn't acting out? If we go to meetings 3 nights a week and you say, well, you used to go act out 3 nights a week, now you're going, it's the same thing to you, to me. there are certain things that we really do need to do. And, and I think you can talk to other spouses to see how they feel about it. But you're right. You're right on in both categories, meaning yes. Oops, sorry. I want to get back to the question. Yes.
Oh, wait, there's more. I'm going to put it in there was a continuation. So
there's a
this may be,
continuation.
yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. So same guy, both the wife and playing partner have been friends for 40 years and we are like family. Wife doesn't even want me to attend the party at all. And she feels unsafe if I don't play. I have not acted out since D-Day almost 15 months ago. How do I deal with her feeling this way? It's not a point where she should try and lean towards my feelings at all. At least try to. She doesn't even know, or she doesn't even know if she wants to try and rebuild the relationship yet.
Okay.
That's interesting.
I can answer this pretty readily, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time for couples therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You've been working on it. You have 15 months. There are couples issues that you don't know how to resolve that may not necessarily be unhealthy requests or unhealthy reactions. But this is where having a qualified professional, someone who knows what they're doing with couples, can sit between you and hear her or him and begin to help you weave it back together. I don't know, should it be 30 years before you never play again? I don't think so. Can you ever play again? I hope so. But, what does it mean to your partner? How do the two of you, couples is the beginning of the negotiation stage. And in the beginning, we're too angry. We're not ready to negotiate. We're too ashamed. We're too angry. But as we get to this point, 15 months, which is about the time where spouses do begin to see things more evenly and feel more at peace with what's happening if we're doing our jobs. To me, this is a time, and I would write Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. We make a lot of referrals to good people. We know good couples therapists all over the country. But anyway, it's a complicated question, as you said, Tammy, and I think it requires a professional to help resolve.
Well, and I'm like, if you're making progress, to me, that would be visible. And how are you ever going to show that you have made the progress in the real world with the issues that you
Right.
have? So you can call your sponsor. I'm going to the party, and like I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be on stage in 10 minutes. I'm calling you now. I'm going to call you when I get off the stage. You can have all that book. There are so many things you can do for your recovery, and then hopefully, if to take away something, learning to do things differently in recovery is what we learn to do, and so I hope as long as you have a foundation, that you would be able to, because I know music is really meaningful to the people who are talented enough to be able to do that. So finding a safe way to do that, I hope for you can. So
I
okay.
did just write something in the chat and I will read it out loud. I said,
Okay.
we never want our spouses to become our parole officers. They're not our, then they are, in other words, you have to be able to go out and live your life in a healthy way. And as Tammy said, and I thought she said this beautifully, is how do you regain trust and honesty? How does a couple regain trust? And if I'm not allowed to be in anywhere in the world, some people have acted out at work when they were, how do they help their spouse feel safe, but also help them understand that they do have to go back to the workplace and they're still going to be on the road or whatever that is. So yeah, a negotiation, discussion, therapy, all finding reassurance for each other. You have a ways to go, but I want everyone to hear this is a place in the process. This is a place where these people are looking at each other and saying, how do we get to the next step? And I think this is you're in a good place to really start to work together. So Tammy, I love when we work together.
I do too. There's one more question. I vote we do it.
Oh,
come on, you can do this.
If my dog poops on the floor, you're going to come
I
over.
would come over and pick it up, but I'm a long ways away. This is a question about capacity versus willingness. What is the difference? And if my spouse is okay with a good enough marriage, can it be that this is his capacity or willingness?
Can you help explain this question?
It feels like this person's,
yeah,
no, I know, but like, okay. So to me, this is somebody settling there. I don't want to do that much work. And so therefore I'm willing to settle for this is good enough, because I'm going to have to do more work and I'm going to have to look more internally as an addict if I want to improve things. So can't we just go with, well, it's better than it was. And,
right.
This is good enough. So that's my take on it.
Well, number one is, so I don't know, is the addict asking this question or the spouse?
No, this is
I'm a
the
little,
partner.
yeah, well, what do you want? You know, do you want a good enough marriage? I mean, I know couples that decide that they're not going to be married anymore, but they're going to remain great friends, and you know, they're going to enjoy each other. So first of all, let me just say this: all marriages are good enough. All marriages. Nobody has a great marriage. Nobody has a terrible marriage. Over time, all of our relationships are a lot of the time good enough. And boy, is good enough good enough. So I'm not really sure what that means. But what my spouse is okay with a good enough marriage. I don't know if that's his capacity or not, but I'm not sure that's what you want. And the word willingness really comes to mind because, you know, if the person I love said, I want to be closer to you, I want to work better on a relationship, I want to XYZ, and I say I'm not interested, I think I'm saying something about the whole relationship. You can't just say, well, this part is good enough and that part. What matters to me is it bothers you. And if it
Yes.
bothers you, then it should bother them because you're partners. And even if you don't get anywhere in the process of making it better, it's about, is he or she willing to say, I don't know if good enough can be better, but I'm willing to try and jump in there with you because I respect what you want. Okay, now I got to take care of my dog, Tammy.
Okay.
Thank you. I
Thank
love doing
you.
this together. I
All right.
really do.
Take care.
See you guys
Bye-bye.
later.